It has been ingrained in my brain every time I hear the phrase,
I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella. And I have never known defeat.
There's one thing that I'm thinking of, and it's, damn, that raw tussie looking kind of wild in phase 2, am I right? Damn. Tough crowd, tough crowd. Yeah, this is a bit of a different video than I usually do. Normally I like analyzing like anime characters and stuff, whether they're overpowered done right, but as a Elden Ring aficionado and Dark Souls lore enthusiast, I wanted to get into this video with a bit of a bang. I wanted to talk about why I think, as far as like the really hard bosses ever, Melania is the best. Like, impressively so. I'm going to be delving into game mechanics and game design as well as lore type stuff, because I very seldom find a character that I truly believe is just so well written and well rounded from a gameplay standpoint as well as from a lore standpoint. Melania is truly and utterly an overpowered character done right, and I will be talking about it. And also, if this video gets 4,800 likes, because that's the amount of stats you need in Dex to actually wield her weapon, I will be making a follow-up overpowered done right on Radahn. In my opinion, my absolute favorite boss in Elden Ring, and in Souls as a whole. Up there with the Abyss Watchers from Dark Souls 3. I know this is not exactly the type of video that I normally make, but it could be, and that's up to you. Waterfowl dance all over that like button and subscribe button, because the future is exciting, and I'm glad to take you with me on this journey. Now let's delve into the crack of this rot tussie. I don't know why I keep saying that. It's not funny at all.
But there would be no victor.
First things first, I'm going to talk about it from a gameplay standpoint, then I'm going to get into the actual character arc and lore aspect of it, and the reason why I'm doing it in this fashion is because you don't actually understand the character arc or lore fashion going through the game. I'm going this chronologically how I experienced it, because the beauty of video games is everyone will play the same game and can have a completely different experience or set of experiences that lead them to a different conclusion and a different reason why they might fall in love with it. So, as someone who is very well versed in Elden Ring lore, yet didn't understand any of it from my actual playthrough and only understood it from, reading up about it after the fact, after I finished it, I'm gonna get into the meat and potatoes and the grind of the, in-game difficulty and in-game stuff you saw throughout the story that actually got you to the point of fighting her. Then, backstory lore time, alright? Capiche? That's how we're doing it. Why? Because I said so. Does that sound unfair to you? Well, frankly, I think that the waterfowl dance move that Malenia does is also unfair, so I think this is very on brand and on theme for this episode. Malenia is the hardest boss in Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a very tough game for people that are unfamiliar with the mechanics, and even for people that know this stuff. If you want to get by without summons, without help from other players, without any of that stuff, it's a tough game anyway. Obviously, I think that as far as scaling the game, they did a really good job. You can play this game on a bunch of different difficulties, even though there isn't an option menu in the beginning with easy mode and hard mode. Now, I'm not a game journalist, so I actually can beat this game, and the first boss of this game. But depending on your playstyle and how difficult you want the experience to be, you can experience it through many, many different ways. There are many different quests that can get you different NPCs to join you in your battles. You can summon other players from other worlds to help join you in your battles. And you can also get summons and spirit ashes that you can summon beside you to join you in your battles. Essentially, this game is only as hard as you want it to be, and if you actually know what you're doing and are willing to put in all the prep time and stuff, this game will not be too overwhelmingly incredibly difficult because of the mechanics and stuff. If you want to go into a boss fight and you have your NPC summon and your regular homie summon and your spirit ashes and you this 4-on-1 colossal fight, and all of a sudden, yeah, Draconic Tree Sentinel isn't exactly gonna be that tough of a battle. Now, the reason why I'm prefacing with this concept is because Malenia kind of throws that all out the window. Fighting Malenia, you cannot rely on NPC summons, and you cannot rely on someone else carrying you, unless it's one creepy dude with a pot on his head. And the reason for that is the aforementioned waterfowl dance. She has one move that's incredibly, incredibly difficult to dodge. A lot of people hate this mechanic because, quite frankly, it's pretty undodgeable. Every time she hits you, she gets health back, and like, you literally need to be so freaking perfect that you can dodge this thing. Otherwise, you know, you just pray behind a shield, or maybe dodge the first flurry, but the second flurry will annihilate you, let alone the third flurry that'll give you rot herpes. There is no happy ending, but the reason why I like this is because ultimately it is an optional boss. I love that in Souls games, you can beat almost every single one of the games without actually fighting the hardest boss. Normally you'd think the hardest boss of the game is at the end, but in a Souls type series, they almost never do something like that. Because I do think if Malenia would be the final boss, well, a lot more people wouldn't actually ever beat this game. The only way to get to Malenia is to access a very secret location in the map called the Halig Tree, where you meet the true hardest enemy in Dark Souls. No, I'm not talking about Malenia, no. I'm talking about gravity, jumping from branch to branch in this stupid Halig Tree place where you die 4 billion times. Every time you come back to life, you these stupid people, these KKK members with their goddamn horns blowing, tooting at you. Oh, you're back to life now. You must have fallen off before. Oh, pay attention to all the blood stains on the floor. That's what you're gonna become soon. Oh. History's most annoying welcoming party. Thank you. But I digress. I love the fact that you can actually beat the game and feel accomplished without ever approaching Malenia. Malenia can be a boss that maintains a level of respect to her because you can beat the game and never actually need to face her. If you are brave enough to face her, well, you're going to have to use everything you've learned through this entire game. And the most important thing is determination. Because you won't beat her on the first try. You probably won't beat her on the 10th try. You might beat her on the 100th try. They're sucking me up! All that, in my opinion, makes Malenia a brilliant boss, a brilliant, overpowered character. Someone who can maintain that level of strength without actually tarnishing the major gameplay, because the only way to get her is by going to a completely optional legacy dungeon. I understand the pain of being up against a boss that you just cannot beat. For most players in Elden Ring, I think that's probably the Godskin duo, as they are a required boss. Malenia is way, way harder, and since you don't actually need to beat her, you can feel the sense of accomplishment, yet you know there is still one challenge before you, despite the fact that you technically did win the game. I love that concept, I love that build, and I love the way that you actually have to use everything you thought you learned about this game in order to beat her. Like the fact that when you actually get her health bar to 0, you know that phase 2 is coming out and it's going to be even scarier. You have to devise an entire tactic before entering this battle on how not to die to the waterfowl dance, let alone to the blooming flower attack thingy at the beginning of phase 2. You have to know that just sitting there parrying and blocking isn't going to help you, because every time she hits you, even when you're blocking, she is getting health back. All the aggressiveness that you learned throughout the game, you have to apply, and all the pattern recognition and the ability to avoid damage also needs to be applied. A lot of people complain about the waterfowl dance being an unfair attack. I disagree completely. It's a test of your willpower to get back up and try to survive it the time after you die to it. No amount of Malenia hentai will save you from this attack. Trust me, I know. But here we get into part 2. I felt like this was a really important preface to the video because from an actual standpoint of a player, this is how you'll be encountering her, and this is the skill ceiling that she's putting on the game that you are gonna do your absolute best to surpass. From a lore aspect, I love how overpowered she is. Now, of course, I'm not going to get into every detail of her lore, reading every item description. I'm just going to get into talking about how, from a character standpoint, she's brilliantly overpowered. Now, I apologize in advance if I get any details wrong. This is just my perspective on a character that I truly think is beautiful. And I'm not even referring to the hentai. I think this has been a self-report of a video, hasn't it? Was this a self-report? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. There are a bunch of demigods in this world of Elden Ring. From Marika and Godfrey, they had Godwyn and Godric. From Radagon and Renala, they had Rani, Rykard, and Radahn. And from Marika and Radagon, in this weird self-cest situation, because they're actually the same person somehow. Don't ask me how it works. I've tried it, and I cannot get it to work! Okay, editor, scratch that. I'm just gonna quickly run through it one more time. Now, you're gonna probably wonder, wait a second, Nux, George R.R. Martin was part of this. What did he actually have to do with this entire situation? Well, my child, let me tell you the family tree between all the gods in Elden Ring. Marika and Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, had Godwyn, Godric, Mohg, and Morgott. Radagon and Rennala, Radagon being the second Elden Lord, had Radahn, Ranni, and Rykard. Marika and Radagon had Malenia and Miquella. Twin Empyrean gods. And now you're probably wondering, wait a second, we've played this game. Isn't Marika, Radagon, aren't they the same person? Yes, self-cessed is canon. Thank you, George R.R. Martin. And as many times as I have tried to reproduce these results, I cannot. My god, this entire video is just one giant self-report. Anyway, Malenia and Miquella are these twin gods that are incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. They have this Empyrean title, which means they could potentially even become a next level god. Now, these are the highest level entities that we are actually introduced to throughout the entire story. Incredibly powerful beings that have lived for generations or maybe even millennia. Get it? Melania? Millennia? Get it? And it's up to you, tarnished warrior that wields swords bigger than my Excalibur, while researching all the interesting materials that I needed for the Ratusi analysis. Now, Malenia and Miquella are both somewhat cursed. In fact, a lot of these gods are cursed, but none as much as the twin prodigies Malenia and Miquella. Miquella was cursed to live in a state of forever being young. As much as he ages and ages and ages, he just does not become any more complete. He remains in this infantile state and can never grow to his fullest. Now, Malenia has an opposite problem. She has been afflicted by scarlet rot, and unlike Miquella, she is constantly degenerating. She is constantly devolving and falling apart. The twin prodigies, one who cannot grow and one who is only shrinking. Kinda sad, kinda tragic, alright, I get all that. And we've seen in all the trailers and promotional material this epic fight between Radahn and Malenia, my two favorite characters in the entire story, clashing in this epic battle. A battle so powerful and formidable that Malenia stabs Radahn and herself to create this massive scarlet bloom, this scarlet rot attack that turns the entire section of the map Caelid. You know Caelid, the part that's based off of Ohio in Elden Ring? It's all because of that one scarlet blossom that emanated from Malenia, turning Radahn into the corpse-eating monster, the mindless beast that we see today. And I'm gonna get into more of the tragedy of Radahn and the OP analysis on Radahn himself. That's for another day for sure, but to just hone in on Malenia, look at the damage that she caused with this outburst of rot. She is a tragic character. As you go through entire quest lines following Millicent, how she's stabbing herself with needles so the rot doesn't absolutely take over and turn her to dust, we can really empathize with this character. A character that's so hidden and secret for the entire story, we're not actually meeting them, we don't even have to meet them, but they are a character whose actions completely and utterly changed the very map and world that we are living in and exploring dramatically. The fact that all the scarlet rot that we're seeing in all of these areas, except for the actual lake of rot, are essentially completely because of her, because of a curse that she was afflicted with. That just leads you to the mystique and power that she actually possesses, and now we get into a level even deeper. Now, I am a huge fan of Eldritchian horror. I love the Lovecraftian monsters, these incredible entities that live beyond our recognition and beyond our comprehension, that are secretly pulling the strings and affecting our worlds and minds on a scale that we cannot even possibly grasp. Now, this is something that also exists in the lore of Elden Ring, and it's my humble opinion that this makes the game world so much more powerful and so much more vast. There are concepts like a greater will. There's Mohg, who's serving the mother of blood, or whatever the frick weird incest crap he's into. Thanks again, George R.R. Martin, you absolute legend. And another one of these outer entities, these entities that are a level above these demigods. All of these demigods, they are pawns in the game of these entities. These incredible astral bodies that somehow have their own plans, their own reckoning, and their own abilities far beyond the scope of anything we could even imagine. The Elden Beast, the final boss in the game that you have to defeat to become the Elden Lord, is just a vessel that's being, controlled by this greater will. It's something so above and beyond the universe that we're in, they can't even personally appear. They can only twist and affect the beings in them, and only the beings that will be strong enough to house them. Now, the being strong enough to house the outer god of scarlet rot is, unfortunately for her, Malenia herself. A character that has clearly been destroyed and ravaged and in constant suffering. She wears a helmet covering her eyes because her eyes have already been eaten away by scarlet rot. Her prosthetic arm is because her arm has already fallen off due to this affliction of scarlet rot. All the suffering that she's causing, all the rot that you have in the Halig tree, all of the crazy discourse and horrible things that happened to Caelid, all of this happened because this poor girl who wanted to do what was best for her brother and what was best for the world was afflicted by an outer god that found her to be a worthy vessel. Now, we learned in the past that this rot god tried to invade the Elden Ring world one time before, and it was actually stopped by this epic water swordsman dude. The Lake of Rot that we see in the underground on our way to Estelle, that is what remains of how the Scarlet Rot god tried to invade the world in the past, and it was blocked by water. Somehow water is the anti-rot potion. By encircling it in the Siofra River well area, they were able to keep it from spreading and completely taking over and destroying the entire world, which seems to be what the Rot God thing wants, but ultimately we cannot even assume what this incredible elder entity beyond our comprehension actually wants. And what becomes so ironic and so iconic is that you see how much Malenia struggled her entire life against this Rot God. She's trying to do the right thing and trying to make a world of peace. Maybe the Halig tree becoming like a second Erd tree, and yet all she can do is struggle and fight against her impending doom, against her destiny where eventually she will rot away. It's a tragic character. It's a tragic character that you have to face. And of course this is a character that loves Miquella with her whole heart, that always calls herself Malenia, the Blade of Miquella. Miquella invented this unalloyed golden needle that could prevent the spread of rot, which she injected with herself so many times, but ultimately it can only slow it down but can't stop it. That's why Miquella was called Miquella, the Unalloyed, for the unalloyed golden needles and stuff that he was sticking into his goddamn sister. This is actually so sad. It's heartbreaking. And what's so ironic is this cool water swordsman guy that managed to stop the spread of the Scarlet Rot in the past with his flowing sword technique or whatever any of that lore stuff says. I never even heard of this dude until the Vtube video talked about it, and I was like, God damn, I didn't even know this guy existed in my playthrough of Elden Ring. But this is just so sad. And it also explains why her ultimate attack, an attack like flowing water, is the waterfowl dance, an attack that hits in all directions because she has no eyes to even see where she's flowing like water, perhaps having learnt this technique from the swordsman that can somehow stop and halt the flow and spread of the inevitable doom that encroaches upon her fate. In the Souls universe, every character becomes a tragic character, and I personally love that. I think Elden Ring is a game where every single one of the actual endings is tragic in its own way. It's a world that's being encompassed by chaos and death. And unlike Dark Souls, which have a very linear path and one way that you could basically play the game and, you know, very slight deviations in how you can actually affect the ending, Elden Ring is very different. Elden Ring is about the choices that you make to get there, not just the final choice, whether you want to, you know, continue the Age of Fire or usher in an Age of Darkness like the end of Dark Souls 3. Elden Ring is all about the choices you made and the bonds you forged with people, yet every single ending you could possibly pick, based on every single human, demigod, or creepy dung-eating feces monster that you've interacted with, does not lead to a good ending. There is no good ending to Elden Ring. Elden Ring is a tragic, broken world, completely plagued by these Eldritchian horror entities, and I think no character is a better example of that than Malenia. A character that doesn't actually affect the story even a little bit in regards to you just playing the game casually, but a character that has affected every part of the world that you marched in, and a character whose fate is so completely and utterly out of your hands. Even if you don't face Malenia, the Blade of Miquella, the one who's never known defeat, even if you never fight her, you never go to the Halig tree, you never do anything at all, she is living an empty life, a life where she's trying to protect her brother, Miquella, who was kidnapped by Mohg, a character that's trying to fight off Scarlet Rot, yet she cannot do that forever, and she is slowly but surely rotting away to absolutely nothing. This is a story about how all the options you take and all the cases you try and all the things you do ultimately usher in a completely beautiful and ultimate amazing new age. And these choices that you've made throughout the game have changed everything about the ending and about the new age that you're ushering in. It will be good for some, it will be bad for more, and ultimately I think Malenia is an engulfment of that entire concept. The concept of no matter what you do, what struggles you take, what choices you make, they will change absolutely everything except for one detail, that ultimately the future is out of your hands entirely. I think it's a powerful message. I think Malenia is one of the coolest bosses in any game I have ever played. The fact that on a technical level you have to work so hard, you have to take everything that you've learned until this point to actually defeat her, and on a practical level, the way she actually affected the entire game world. I think the Radahn fight is still my favorite boss. Radahn is still my favorite character in this entire area here, and I will make an OP analysis on Radahn if this gets 4,800 likes. But the fact that that entire area, that entire spot of the map, Caelid, I think, is such a memorable area because of how tragic it is, and the fact that that's all there because of that one thing Malenia did all that time back is such crazy foreshadowing for how epic and how massive the proportions of the actual battle against her will be. But ultimately, I want to go back to her voice line. I think that it also remains in our conscious that she's who she is, that Malenia is so iconic because every time she beats you, she reminds you, I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella.
Okay, didn't expect that, not gonna lie.
Every time she faces you, she mentions that I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella, and I have never known defeat.
I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella.
Alright. Thank you, Tier 1 Kirby and Tier 1 Alec. She's cool. Got that, like, Sephiroth blade.
I think that's a really powerful concept, because as long as you keep struggling and keep fighting, as long as every time Malenia kills you, you get back up again, you have not yet known defeat. She is living a defeated life. The purpose for existence, Miquella was kidnapped. Her actual life is dwindling before her very eyes, which have already dwindled, yet she has not known defeat, because she still gets up and struggles to fight another day. It's a really powerful message and a really powerful lesson and a really, really powerful, hardest boss in a game. Wow, this one got darker than I somehow expected, but anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was a little different than my usual more anime-ish TV show kind of analysis type stuff. Games are a lot more up to interpretation, especially the Souls-like ones, but I hope you did enjoy. And again, 4,800 likes. Radahn time. My favorite part of the Radahn boss fight was when Radahn just Radahnned all over everyone. He said, it's Radahn time. Yeah, this isn't working. It works much better with Moog. Moog said it's Mogan time and Mooged all over the place. I promise if I ever get to Moog, I will make one of those, because he's also one of my favorite characters. I think Rykard would probably be the one after Radahn and then Moog, because I think I like Rykard better than Moog. They're pretty even. I like my Lord of Blasphemy. I like a bit of blasphemy now and again, every once in a while. I don't like some blasphemy to keep your food cooking. But anyway, I really like making this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments, because it is kind of a new area to me, and I am more than happy to encroach upon this entire style of content. Have yourself a most wonderful evening, and do not poke the Rot Tussie.